What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Light and Lines video. I'm Ben Greaves, and if we haven't met before, I'm an architectural filmmaker and photographer, and I also work closely with builders in the building industry with their marketing and content strategies. Now, it's no surprise that many builders struggle to build trust with their ideal clients and are seen as just another builder. So I created a 5-step marketing plan for building companies to really help you stand out so you can repeatedly land those clients and projects that you actually want. So with that being said, let's get into it and move on to today's video. Before we kick off, Happy New Year. I hope you had a good break and got to spend some time not thinking about work for a while, but I also hope that you're back for the new year, fresh and pumped for 2024. Now, today's video is going to be a little bit different because this video is more or less my predictions for what I believe we'll likely see for builders in their marketing for the 2024 year. So, predictions. Look, let's get straight into it. We got 5 points, yeah? So what are they? What are those points? Now, should I list them all out or just go one by one? Actually, look, I think let's just go one by one. So let's go. Number one. One of my predictions is more builders are going to adopt video, yeah? So now why am I saying that though? So there's no secret that video is great. I mean, especially for builders. Builders build. It's something very visual, it's very tangible, and it's no secret, that every builder should be using video. But this prediction of more builders will adopt video is kind of a positive and a negative at the same time, okay? So the positive about it is that, more because video is more accessible these days. You could literally shoot video on your iPhone, and a lot of guys already do that. And then we've got I'm a camera geek, so I kind of love this stuff. So the technology is there that it's more accessible for more people, including builders, right? So, if you train yourself up or someone in your team, you can shoot video and you can do it really well. The problem, I think, though, is most builders won't do it that well because basically they don't have the time and they want to focus on what they do best. So they probably won't. But again, it is more accessible. So more people are going to shoot. The problem with that, though, is that because more video content's getting created, it's becoming more and more of just kind of normality, and it's a lot harder to connect with someone, and it's a lot harder to stand out to them. It's kind of becoming boring in a way. So the negative here is that the content won't be as good and it'll just become boring and the same old thing, and people won't even really watch it anymore. So that's the opportunity. So I think that for the builders that understand this, they'll go, okay, well, how do we create the best type of content? Video is just a tool, but how do we tell a really good story? And I think that's where it comes down to. It's the focus will become even more on story. Now, for those of you who are a little bit new to this stuff and new to video for their construction business, why is story such a huge thing to incorporate within your marketing? Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I think there's a lot of different reasons for it, but I think people still seek story. I mean, it's literally built into our DNA. It's no secret. We were brought up with stories, and telling stories goes back as far as time to, drawings on cave walls. Now, I've got a little girl, she's 11 months old, and I'm already trying to tell her little stories, even though I know that she probably doesn't understand yet, but I'm trying to get used to the fact of telling her stories and just being a good dad and a good role model and trying to educate her through little stories that I tell. So when it comes to builders using stories, you've got to look at it like you don't just build a product, someone gives you money and then it's done. You're actually part of someone else's story, because if you're building for a family or for whoever you're building for, it doesn't matter. You are a part of their story. So with that, if you can use story within your marketing, then you're just going to get in sync a lot quicker. You've just got so much more opportunity, and there's so many more builders doing it. And I think the opportunity, like I said before, is now being a lot more intentional with what you're actually putting out there. What are those stories that you put out there that are actually going to connect and resonate with clients? So, how do I see that prediction being in the way that stories are told, the way that projects are shown, and the way that clients are shown, and the journeys of clients are being shown? Well, there's a few other prediction points that'll go into this exact question, but if it comes back down to video specifically, my prediction is that the builders that have been doing video for the last couple of years, they're going to go a lot deeper and they're really going to double down on this stuff. They're going to invest more time and more money into this because they can see the power and they understand the power of video. But they're going to see video as just a tool. They're going to focus more on the storytelling side of things, going even deeper on that. And what that means is that they'll invest the time in getting to know their clients or their target market even more and understand what stories that they need to see or hear. And then these builders are going to invest the time to create those stories. So that's one of my predictions. One of my other predictions for the newer builders out there, that they're going to start to adopt video. And that's the whole prediction here, that more builders overall will adopt video, and the new builders are going to start adopting video, and it'll just be really surface level. So it'll just be around the project and showing the project, and a lot of drone shots and all this kind of stuff. I mean, look, it's pretty common these days for a builder to have a drone in the truck, and we're already seeing a lot of that DIY drone footage from builders who are really just kind of scratching the surface here, and I think that's going to continue. The builders that have been doing that for a while, they're going to invest more and they're going to go a lot deeper on story. Okay, so, but what do I mean by going deeper? How can we even go deeper? So when I say going deeper, what I mean is it's understanding, and the biggest thing is understanding who's your client. So if you were looking at the last year or the last 2 years, going, who have you really enjoyed working with, and who's those people that you feel like you can add a lot of value to? It's now then seeking out and telling those stories. And it's not just being surface level, like I said, showing a project and even just talking about the project. Talking about the project, it's actually using little moments throughout to give descriptions, to let people into that moment. If you just kind of take it back to the basics of storytelling, you've got to remember when you're communicating a story to someone that there's different types of people. The people that receive it in like a very analytical, numbers specific way, like that's how they communicate. But then you've got people that are a little bit more emotional and a bit more, some might call it airy fairy. And it's more about feeling and taste and that kind of stuff. But then there's the third one, which is like adventure and excitement. So you've got to remember, now when you do stories, you can't just show visually what the project looks like. Now you've got to go, well, for those emotional people, you've got to look at them. You've got to go, well, what is this new project? What does that mean for this client? What does that mean for this family, for their lifestyle? What does it allow them to do now? And then it's a matter of, even as an example, a builder walking into a kitchen, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the kitchen now and I'm showcasing in the kitchen. It's a new kitchen, but then going, okay, cool, but what's this going to mean for the client? It's going to mean that they're going to be able to entertain and have barbecues. They've set up their new oven and their stovetop in a way that's going to create, it's going to be a bit easier to cook meals at night with the family. And it means that they're going to be able to sit down and have a good meal together because that's what's important to them as a family. So it's kind of, when I'm going a bit more in regard to story, they're going deeper, and it's really thinking on how what you do impacts the lives of your clients. And then, like on the analytical side, it tends to be, like some sort of logical reason. And I mean, a lot of men are more on the logical side. So, and that's what normally people say. So people normally say that men are very logical and solutions based, and we can quickly solve a problem. So whenever my wife, for example, she comes up, with a problem to me, I'm really quick to at least try and solve it. But instead, all I had to do is just be there for her and just like, show that more sensitive and emotional side and just shut up and listen. So there's a lot of different personalities, and bringing your own personality out will help you better connect with people. And because you're better connected to them, people, they almost see themselves as that person. And I think it's the same with builders, their client stories. And when I say deeper, it's about, again, number one, understanding the clients that you want and then going, okay, what clients do I have and what are their personalities? And how are we going to connect those personalities with the other side? And it's not just surface level video content anymore, like a testimonial video where the client goes, yeah, ABC Builder was amazing. They were on time, they built quality, we love our house, they communicated well. No, it's deeper than that. It's showing the couple and their personality and what they love doing together. For example, I'm working on a project at the moment where we're literally waiting for the right surf conditions because surfing is such a huge part of how that particular family bonds, and we want to show that in the film that we're creating. And to people who want that similar lifestyle, that's what they're going to connect with. That's like the kind of target market of that builder and those people, which then connected them to that specific builder. So it's almost like you're using your clients and their personalities to connect future prospective clients emotionally to your business. And I think one thing that sort of stands in the way of builders being able to do this, I think the biggest negative sometimes is you've got to understand like what's your personality type and how do you communicate. And don't just think, like everyone else, when you're talking to prospective clients that, and the prospective clients are going to perceive you in a certain way. You've got to understand you might be talking to the husband in a couple and he'll understand you, but his wife won't. So I think that it's kind of just like going on a prediction for this year is kind of going even deeper and understanding every family member, because even if you can connect with the teenage son or teenage daughter in a way, because if you can connect to them and you might catch up with them before, going ahead with anything, you might, bump into them, and then later that night they're now having dinner with the family, and the daughter might go, she's 15 years old and she's saying, I just love this guy. I just love this builder. He's fun. I like him. There was something that connected her to you. So it's really understanding, and you've got to remember that you're not just talking to one audience. You might be talking to 3 or 4 or 5 different audiences. So as a builder, like a big thing is to really go and step back and wait and think about who are the people, who are the personalities, and know that you've got to try and hit every person in a way so that you have a better chance of connecting to that whole family and that family as a whole. So prediction number 2. So 2024, I think more builders are going to adopt educational-based marketing. Okay, so why educational-based? Well, I believe that by the time prospects sign a contract with you, they'll be way more educated. So what that means is builders are going to be investing more and more time and money into resources and into creating a much better educated client. And I mean, I literally already see that, happening with the builders that I'm working with. They're actively working on trying to educate their clients and literally molding them into being great clients to work with. And I think the reason why they want to do that is because the more educated a client is, the better the whole building process is going to be for everyone involved. A more educated client will be easier to deal with. The project outcomes will be better. The team will have a better time. The client will have a better time because they know what to expect and expectations are being set and everything else like that. Now, educational-based marketing it's the part before the client becomes a client. It's the way you educate them. Educational-based sales is, how do you educate that client during the sales process? And then client education is how do you educate them while they are a client? But I believe that if you can educate them through your marketing, it'll become a much easier sales process. So the way you educate your clients during the sales process will be easier because they've got a lot more context to who you are and what you're about. They already know exactly what's happening. You've been able to, build this relationship and build their knowledge up. And again, by the time they actually become a client, they're well and truly educated, and it'll just be a more seamless type of process. I mean, look, this has come up a few times in, say, the last 6 months for me. One good example is a few guys I work with are members of the APB, right? And they're asking me, how can we better educate our clients? So they come and ask me like, how can we put this in place? So, I mean, obviously, we're working on a few things now with some of my clients on how to educate their clients better. So kind of stay tuned there. But I think that this is going to be a massive one. So for someone that's, out there kind of sitting there going, okay, cool, well, how could I to some degree take that on for 2024? Let's quickly have a look at what the first step or the first couple of steps that someone can take to ensure that they're even a level higher with their own educational content. I mean, I think that every builder should at least have a process, your process, drawn out and publicized, whether it's on your website or on a brochure or even an email that you can send out to clients or prospective clients, just with some descriptions along with that process and how the builder does that part. So let's say, for example, one of the first steps of your process is an on-site consultation where you meet the client for the first time to preliminarily discuss what they want to do, right? So you'd have something going into some detail about this is what it is, this is why it's important to you, the client, and to me, the builder, and this is how we go about it, and this is the next step for you from here. So that's how you can educate them on that part of the process, okay? So you educate them on each part of the process like that. What is it? Why is it important to them as the client? Why is it important to you as the builder? And how do we go about that? And then what's that next step for the client? So that's kind of like the formula for each part of the process. But then, of course, there's going to be other parts as well, things that I don't even know at this moment because every builder out there is so different and no one does everything exactly the same. So I think it's about looking inward to your own business, looking at your clients, talking to your clients and, figuring out what's some of their biggest fears, their limiting beliefs, their false beliefs that they might have, objections that might stop them from going ahead and, not just going ahead with you, but going ahead with the whole build and the whole project. You've got to know and understand all of those things because then you can create content around that to educate them. But, why would you want to bring up those false beliefs or those fears when you don't necessarily want to reveal it? Yeah. Why would a builder want to bring that up in the educational, part of the process? The simple answer is it's trust building. I've said it 1,000 times that the single biggest hurdle you have to overcome as a builder is trust. But why? Well, if you're scared of doing something, there's a pretty bloody good chance that you're not going to do it at all because you're scared. And there's a lot of scared people out there in the building world because, everyone knows a bad builder story. So straight away, this is something you as the builder, you have to overcome if you even want to stand a chance of someone doing work with you. So if you're not scared and you're well educated and you can take an educated risk, then there's a lot more chance of you going ahead and moving ahead with the next step, especially in this market, like this current market with what's been happening in 2023. And people, some people have sort of pulled back a little bit and they're just like watching what's happening with builders and they're seeing all the media reports about big builders going bust and things like that. So now more than ever, you've got to go and you've got to make them confident. They've got to be so confident in you as a builder. So it's bringing up those fears. Like I say, it's revealing it and then saying, but this is how we do it and this is how we overcome it. Because the more that you can cross off those things, because you've got to remember, like every client has this sort of checklist in their mind subconsciously, right? And they might not even think about it that way, that all they're doing is, they're ticking things off in their head, and they'll get to a certain point where, once I've ticked off enough things, then I'm ready to move and I'm ready to go ahead. And that's what we've got to do in 2024. So I think it's ticking off those fears in their minds and all that kind of stuff. Another side of educational based marketing is, these days, I'm sure you've heard this thing that a brand needs to have something like 6 touch points before someone buys. And look, it could be even more now, but what is a touch point? Like we don't even know, right? And also, what is it you're selling? If it's a bottle of water, like you don't exactly need 6 touch points. That's more like, I'm thirsty. Hey, would you like this bottle of water? Yeah, cool. I'll buy that. No worries. There's no risk there. And if I don't like it, then I just don't buy it again because, it's like a few bucks. Whereas a big renovation or a new home, like you can't just test it, you can't just try it out. There's a lot of risk there. And a lot of time, especially for the guys that I work with, there's millions and millions of dollars of risk. Not only, I mean, if your client's only doing this once or maybe twice in their lifetime. So there's a rough general rule that says something like a prospective client needs to consume at least 11 hours, not of content, but they need to be thinking about you and be looking at you and taking in your content and all that kind of stuff for 11 hours before they can make any kind of decision. And again, that's just a very general rule. It's not building specific. So it might even, be more than that as a builder. So how does a builder do that when, let's say, maybe they've got a team of, it's maybe them and 2 other people in the team, compared to someone that's got a corporation that have all of the resources possible to do this? How does someone like that do it though? Well, I think more builders, and I haven't seen any yet, will create, actually, no, we've got a few clients that have done this a little bit. They'll create a YouTube channel and a podcast and, something like this, what I'm doing, because then each episode or each video, they can touch on a particular topic, a fear, a false belief, and, they can come in and they can talk about it. So I think hopefully, that's a prediction for 2024. Maybe that's a 2025 prediction because it's not easy. I mean, I've done this a few times for a few builders and it's very time consuming and it takes a lot of work, but the results are worth it because in the long run, they know that this kind of content, can be created once and then used for years and years down the track. So the next thing that I think is going to come into play this year is something that, I call like blended marketing. So blended marketing it's a blend of physical and digital marketing. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, as builders, I think you guys are pretty lucky in a way because you've got the physical aspect. You can physically show people things that you've created and they can see it and touch it with their own hands. Whereas, like there's a lot of businesses out there that they can't see it yet. So they've got to invest a lot of money in getting people to visualize it in their own minds and stuff like that, especially intangible products. So, what you guys are creating is something super tangible. It's physical, it's location based. And chances are that, you'll be building more and more in the same kind of locations. So you're bound to location in a way. Now, I know there's some builders out there that have multiple offices, all over Australia and stuff like that. That's a bit of a different story. But even then, like you're still location based to wherever it is you're building. So this one particularly, it's going to be around builders creating a project brochure and dropping it off in the neighborhood and basically saying, hey, look, we're about to renovate this house on this street. Here's a QR code, scan it to stay up to date. And this is where, people, they'll go and everyone's used to QR codes now, especially thanks to the pandemic with all the scan-ins and stuff like that. So people will be able to scan the QR code, enter their email address. So now builders can capture their data, so their email and their name and stuff like that. And they can send out targeted email campaigns and communication to them specifically related to that project. Now, I think the reason why people would will jump on board with this and actually do this is because, like, as people, we're very curious creatures. So they're curious about what's happening in their community and what's happening around where they live, or they might want to get ideas for their own house and all that kind of stuff. I've literally had people stop outside my house to look at what kind of brick we used. So the builders that I think adopt this, so it's the physical aspect of location and brochure and dropping it off, and then having the digital marketing side to set up and back it up. And then also being able to tell the story of that project as it progresses. And this is something that I spend a lot of time doing, is creating that content for builders of their projects progressing and helping them tell that story as the project comes to life. So for example, the framing's up and what that means, and creating a video or content around that and emailing it out to that list. So, don't just put it up on your socials and hope that people see it. Create a mailing list and use it. And if you've already got a lead magnet, and I know some of you do, and you know exactly what I'm talking about there, then use that list and send them those updates. And that's a touch point. So it's about creating an audience and also the stories. People get very, like when the reason why people in the street would like to see more of it is because people get nosy. They're like, what's this house selling for? Or they've got a similar house, and they're always like, where's my property at? How much is my property worth? And like I said, once you drop it in and they scan the QR code, and it can take them along the journey, and you'll be giving them ideas for a project of their own, even if it might not be something that they do for a couple of years. You'll plant new seeds, and yes, it might be a year or two away or 3, but if you can plant that seed and have them start talking about it, it throws us back to that last point of they start to think about you, and there's many more touch points along the way. And again, another reason why people don't go ahead and renovate, or they don't even start thinking about it, is because they don't even really know what they want. They think they know what they want, but they quite often don't. So they almost want, like I said before, they want an idea. So if you live, let's say, for example, okay, I live in Kiama, and a lot of builders I work with are in this market. So let's say you live here in Kiama. Chances are that a lot of the houses, they'll be of a similar type and a similar age, because it was built at a particular stage or age, right? So they'll all look very similar. Some people will be like, okay, I need a bit of a refresh, but I just don't know what. I don't really know what's possible. So they might look at some architecture or some videos or some TV shows, but they're always going to be in different locations. So let's say, for example, Queensland, and then the architecture and everything there's completely different to the architecture in, Kiama and in Melbourne or in Perth. So it might not fit here from an environmental point of view and all that kind of stuff. So, they want an idea of what's happening in their own town. So one, I think, is builders need to adopt this as soon as possible. So this one is so powerful. And I don't think we really understand how much power this has, because if you build someone's, let's say you renovate someone's house here in Kiama, and you drop off that brochure, and everyone can see the progress, they can see the whole journey, the story of it, and then the finished product, and they go, oh yeah, like I want that, well, that's a good starting point. I just want to do this and this with mine, who's going to be the builder of choice? Of course, it's the one that's already done something like that. That's a cool little tactic to use, and it's something simple that any builder can take on pretty easily, okay? And the same thing goes, for site signage and cars and vehicle signage. I guess uniforms on site, that's probably not a biggie, but just those little touch points. I've never seen a QR code on someone's shirt, or, not so much a shirt, but, anyway, you can scan my shoulder or just tattoo it on their shoulder here. I mean, look, you could try that, but the reason why this works really well is because, I've just shown you how that works to the digital side of things, okay? And it's another touch point. But another good thing is when they scan that QR code, and especially for my clients, like why this is good for my clients. So if you're a client and you're listening to this, go ahead and do this whole blended marketing thing, When we get them on your website, now we're showing them your stories, and we're going that little bit deeper where, your projects and everything else, and then we can start the remarketing side of things. So, when when you go and look at a product, you can keep seeing it. And it's a lot of touch points here. And again, this is more touch points, 11 hours, all that kind of stuff. Okay, it's all that great stuff. So the next topic, or the next prediction, I guess, is the next prediction is I think we're going to see more builders, and I don't think they'll do this, but what they need to do is they need to build an audience. So what do I mean by building an audience? Am I talking like Instagram or Facebook? I'm just kind of throwing out some of the questions here that are relevant that you're probably going to be asking yourself. Are you talking like an email marketing audience? And look, really, I think it's everything. And I think it's something that I want to explore with you, okay? And I mean, some of the things that we just spoke about before, especially more around builders, will adopt video, educational-based marketing, blended marketing, all of those things, they're part of that audience building process. But the builders with the biggest audience will have the bigger choice of clients. And when I say the biggest audience, just to go back to that, because like, what is a big audience? And also, does it, what do we say about quality versus quantity? I think it's an audience that, let's not limit it to different channels like Instagram or YouTube or even an email list. Let's break it down really, really simple. The more people that know about a building company and actively build a relationship with them, they will win. So now as a builder, you can have a look and, have a think at where's your audience? Are they hanging out on Instagram, on YouTube, on an email list? I guess you can't hang around on an email list, but everybody's got an email. So you need to be building your email list anyway. And there's a whole other video I can do on why you need an email list. But yeah, just have a think about it. Like, where is your audience? And look, that might be like, think outside the box. Don't just think in terms of digital marketing and social platforms. Like, think about how, we all help our clients. Think about things like joint ventures. I know of builders who've teamed up with real estate agents, buyers agents, finance brokers, and have done some very successful joint ventures in that way. And those relationships have brought people together, and then maybe one day they'll become a client. So builders need to think about that and think about B2C, business to consumer, and who else has your audience, who's got my audience. And that's what I want you to think about as a builder. And then think, how can I team up with someone like that that'll be mutually beneficial to them? So you're not just trying to hijack their audience, you're actually trying to add value to their audience and to their business as well. So, and you can also give them an audience. So how can you do that? So kind of like a partnership, forming partnerships in a way. So who else has your audience that's not a competitor? That's all you need to think about. So would you say, it's kind of like working with architects or interior designers or, types of building product companies out there? It could be, that's where my mind goes straight away. Straight away as a builder, my mind goes to architects, right? But then again, how do we think outside the box even more? It could be around real estate agents who sell a lot of land. Like I mentioned before, it could be things in the community. You want to build your brand within the community as well. And you want to be seen as someone that contributes to that community. Let's say that there's a builder out there and he's sitting there and, they only build 2 homes a year, if that, because they're long, high-end, complicated, expensive builds. And, he'd be like, but, why do I need to build an audience? Because I only need 2 builds. And if I've got my next 2-3 years sorted already, like, why does this even matter to me? And look, I've heard of builders just through people that I talk to that have, just one client. It's like a developer, and that developer just feeds them work every single year. Okay, so that's great. If that's your business model and that's working, like, keep going with it. But I think one thing to keep in mind is if that developer doesn't do it anymore, or they go bust or whatever, or they move on to something else, then you've put all your eggs in one basket. So, there's obviously positives and there's negatives for everything. And when it comes to, if you're just doing two projects directly to like business to consumer, to the consumer market, well, you've got to think about, okay, well, where's my next two coming from? And what do I want those next two to be? What are the types of clients that I want them to be like? Do I want to have an even better choice than what I do now? Do I want a little pool of people who want to work with me, and I can literally just pick and choose which projects I want because I know that they're all amazing builds for perfect clients? And that's an interesting topic because it comes back to brand equity. It's kind of going like, as an individual, you'll go, for example, yourself, to build wealth, you'll try and invest into like the residential market or the commercial market, and you'll start slowly but surely putting things into different baskets, even like crypto, stocks, etc. And I think now, with the day and age that we live in, and we're going, 2024, 25, 26, one of those baskets, it needs to be brand equity. And it's got to become, especially if you only do one or two projects a year, it doesn't matter if you've got the next 2 or 3 years booked out. A big thing is to keep building on that brand equity and position yourself as that high-end luxury builder. And I know that that's one thing that I believe strongly in. It's just in the business and everything is, it's just, you've got to keep providing value, even though if everything looks good for the next little while ahead, you don't know what's going to be in 2 years, 3 years from now, and what doors that could open. It can be huge. You just don't know. And it's one of those things that you've got to think further ahead than just the next year and think about what are those other baskets when it comes to brand equity, and how can you start filling those baskets? How can you start chipping away at that? You're really investing. Again, like building an audience is like, it's investing just like any other investment, and it's so crucial, and it can open so many doors, and I've seen it. Yeah. So the last prediction is project documentaries. So I believe that more builders, especially the ones that I work with and have done video with in the past, now it's like they're going to do project documentaries in a way that's going to go next level. I mean, I've done this quite a few times, and I highly recommend this to all the builders that I work with, is those short little documentaries. Like, that's been amazing, and I absolutely love it. It's beautiful cinematography, it's beautiful storytelling, amazing projects. And it's a little bit like, have you ever seen that Netflix show Chef's Table? Right? So Chef's Table, from what I've heard, and I could be wrong, so don't quote me on this, is that you haven't made it as a chef until you've had your story told by Chef's Table. Now, it's a pretty big claim, but again, that's where the world's moving, right? Back in the day, it was Michelin star is something that you can, put on, as we're a Michelin star restaurant, which was really just clever marketing for Michelin to sell more car tires, right? Whereas now it's almost like, again, if we just go back to that previous point about building brand equity, this is building brand equity. It's like, I've been on Chef's Table, like my story's out there. And I mean, every time my wife watches a Chef's Table episode, she's like, I really want to go there. And she'll pin it on Google Maps straight away. So, if in case we go to that country, we'll definitely go and visit that restaurant because of that story. And I think they've had like 7 seasons or something, right? And then they've got these little different ones like in Asia, and they've had barbecue versions. They just had a pizza one. And I've noticed that some of these chefs, like after doing Chef's Table, they just shot up, because what happens is it's like a way of promoting that chef, but you get all of these eyes glued to your story, and they get so sold on this person's story for an hour that people are just like, man, I love this guy. And after seeing it, people are going to these restaurants because of the person, not just the food. So the prediction is there's going to be a lot more project documentaries. So, you might wonder, should the story be around the builder, kind of like Chef's Table being around the chef, or is it going to be around the client? Well, look, I've done both. I recommend both. I've done ones around the builder and the project. I've also done the client, and I've even done blended ones where both the builder and the client are in the same video, both talking about the project. But the thing is, and even though it's about the client, the builder's still involved and it's still building brand equity for that builder. And I feel like as a builder and as a building company and a building brand, whether you see yourself as just a builder or a building brand, like it's important. Like while you go along, tell the stories from the client's point of view. And it's good to build that brand equity in your building brand as well. Yeah. And you're also building an audience by leveling all that stuff up, because you can bring the architect in here as well. Or if you're the architect, you can bring in the interior designer, the landscape designer, the builder, whoever's involved in the project. Yeah, there's all those little stories involved to bring this thing to life. So yeah, I think project documentary is going to become more and more of a thing, because again, we're trying to really push the envelope as far as, videos becoming more accessible. So our first prediction, the builders that really want to go deep on this, they're going to go, okay, what can we do next? Where can we take this to next? And I think it's going to be project documentaries. And I believe it'll build more demand for your brand, kind of like we've said about the chef's table kind of thing. Yeah. So that's going to build more demand. It's going to build more demand for you, for your brand, for your business. So, why does this matter to you as a builder? It's about being in more demand so you can have more choice. You want a lineup. It's one way of looking at it is you want a sushi train of clients, right? So it's like a sushi train and they just keep coming and they keep coming, and you can just pick the ones that you want and leave the ones that you don't. And so it's a pretty great analogy. So project documentaries will also educate more people because it's a longer format. It's more beautiful. It's more story-based. You can educate around the fears, and that goes back to educational-based marketing as well. Educational-based marketing doesn't have to be in a format like this video or a podcast. It can be a 10-minute, 20-minute little documentary where you can educate your clients through your other clients or through the architect or through yourself as the builder, right? And I think probably the most powerful one as a project documentary is it's heavily story-based, and it's where you can really take people on a journey. Okay, people love going on journeys, and man, like being in the construction space and developing the products that builders develop for their clients, like, man, you guys are in one of the easiest industries to tell those stories, and you've really just got to capitalize on it. You just got to do it. Like, you're playing with all the senses here. It's a visual experience. It's an audible experience as well. Once you put some great music to it that helps emphasize the ebb and the flow of that story, like it's super, super powerful stuff. So yeah, you've got all the senses, like like I'm saying. I mean, there's some businesses out there, and I can think of a lot of industries right now where if they listen to this, they're like, how the heck do we do that for our business, man? Like, as builders, it's so easy. It's literally like right there at your fingertips, but most people don't do it because they're in a rush. They've finished this project and they want to get it out. They want to get it photographed as fast as possible, and so much so that they'll often shoot it empty, which, if you ask me, is a complete waste of money, because that does absolutely nothing to engage someone or help them picture their family and themselves in that project that you've just spent the last 6 months, 12 months building. So shooting something empty is just such a wasted opportunity. So if you're doing that, stop. So if you're not doing these things, well, the opportunity is there for 2024 to start out. Just make those steps towards it. So those, I guess, are the predictions. So number one, more builders will adopt more video, and the builders that are already doing video, they're going to go deeper. They're going to do more story-based video. The next one is educational-based marketing and educational-based sales. Be educating clients more and setting better expectations. Number three is blended marketing. So a blend of physical and digital. So utilizing brochures around your location with the QR code. And the next one is building an audience. I think a lot more builders are going to invest in building their audience, building their brand equity. And yeah, lastly, number five, project documentaries. So if you haven't watched it, Chef's Table as a builder, go watch it, go binge. It definitely is good. So look, there's some great topics in there for you to dive into, and hopefully I'm right. Hopefully a year from now, we can look back at this video and look back at, these 5 predictions, and it'll be more of a case, and I'll see it straight away with my clients. So, so I help a lot of builders. So, we'll see how it goes. Guys, thank you for watching. If you haven't already, lightenlines.com.au, hit it up for even more videos like this. And I hope you guys kill it and make 2024 one to remember. I'll see you next time.